Hi everyone, this is Amy. Welcome to my channel. So recently, US figure skating began allowing virtual testing for moves in the field, free skate, and dance. And one of my skaters was planning to test her pre-preliminary moves in the field last May. But obviously the rink closures kind of prevented that from happening. So when this opportunity arose for virtual testing, I brought it to her as an option, and she was in. In this video today, I'm going to explain what moves in the field testing is, how you can test your moves in the field virtually, and if you're a coach, how you can film your skater's test so that it meets all the requirements. I'm also going to show you the exact virtual test that we submitted and go over it with you so you know why she passed. But before I get into all that, if you're new here, my name is Amy, and I'm a PSA ranked and rated figure skating coach choreographer. I'm also a certified elite personal trainer, nutrition coach, and youth fitness specialist. I not only tell a skater what they should do, but I also explain to them why and how they can make it better, because I believe a more in-depth understanding actually makes things happen and can enhance good technique rather than just getting the job done. So if you like this kind of content, I post at least 3 videos a week. I say that, but it's usually more. And if you enjoy watching videos about healthy eating, fitness, nutrition, and skating, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell right next to it so that you never miss a video. Okay, so now let's get back into it. First, what is moves in the field? And why do you need to pass tests on them? So after you progress beyond the Learn to Skate USA curriculum, whether you're in group or private lessons, that's basic 1 through 6, pre-free skate, and the free skates as well. Once you get past that curriculum and those elements, you can begin testing. You can actually probably do it as soon as you're done with basic 6, as long as you've prepared for the test, of course. This test structure is considered as the foundation for US figure skating. Test sessions feature panels of US figure skating judges and are hosted by clubs across the country. And now virtually too. Tests offer skaters the opportunity to highlight their abilities and advance to the next level of skating. Now, competitive skaters are actually required to pass these tests in order to compete at qualifying competitions. Recreational skaters may also take these tests, even if they don't want to compete, just as a means to continually challenge themselves and their skating abilities. Honestly, skaters of all levels can benefit significantly by mastering these moves in the field. And when you practice them for a test, you'll find that you have so many new skills to draw from in your skating. So I usually introduce the pre-preliminary moves in the field to my skaters when they get to around basic 4 to about basic 6, because this is when we introduce the concept of edges and begin to teach the skills required for crossovers. Introducing the forward perimeter stroking at this time to my skaters, as well as forward edges on a line, provides beginner skaters with a pattern they can follow. This is something they can practice on their own when they're outside of their lesson time. I find this really helps to put the skills into perspective for the skater because it gives them context. And the patterns give them something to practice that allows them to better organize their practice time. Now, each level of moves in the field has its own challenges, but each level will help you progress to the next level because you've learned new ways of power and control. Now, I know sometimes younger skaters feel that moves in the field are not as exciting as jumps and spins, but skaters and their parents too really need to understand that moves are critical to improve their skating. After all, it doesn't matter how high you can jump or how fast you can spin if the rest of your skating skills just aren't there. For one thing, how can you execute a jump properly if you don't have a good foundation of edges? Also, if you compete, your component score includes skating skills, as well as transitions. Skating skills are defined by overall cleanness and sureness, edge control, and flow over the ice, the clarity of technique, and the use of effortless power, seemingly effortless power. to accelerate and vary speed. In evaluating skating skills, the following is considered by judges: use of deep edges, steps and turns, balance of rhythmic knee action, precision of foot placement, flow and glide, varied use of power, speed and acceleration, use of multi-directional skating, and use of one-footed skating. Transitions are the varied and purposeful use of intricate footwork, positions, movements, and holds that link all the elements together. In evaluating transitions, judges consider the continuity of movement from one element to another, variety, difficulty, and quality. Now, moves in the field require a skater to master the skating skills and transitions necessary for free skating. So you can't take a free skating test until you have first passed the moves in the field test of that same level. These tests together determine a skater's competition level. So if you take the pre-preliminary moves test and pass, you can now take the pre-preliminary free skate test. So for this reason, it's essential that any skater that intends to compete at any level pass their moves in the field test. As a skater progresses and moves in the field, the tests become more difficult. So each test passed is a definite cause for celebration. And when the skater passes the final test in any given pathway, whether that be moves in the field, free skate, dance, they earn a designation of U.S. Figure Skating Gold Medalist. All that said, even if you never actually test your moves and you just skate for fun, these moves can be useful as warm-up exercises. Moves in the field were first introduced in 1996 as a testing element, and they were introduced to replace what we had at the time called compulsory figures. You can still take figures tests, but you cannot take those virtually, unfortunately. And it's becoming a little bit more difficult every passing year to find somebody who can actually judge those tests. So if you're thinking of taking a figures test, or if you studied those figures when you were younger and want to take them now, you can do that at an in-person test as long as they have a judge that is certified to judge the figures test. And if you ever wondered how figure skating got its name, it's from compulsory figures. At one time, compulsory figures actually made up 60% of a figure skater's competition score, but they were progressively devalued until they became only 30% of the score, and eventually they were not counted at all as part of the score. The short program was introduced in 1967, and that has served as the replacement for figures. And there was a good reason for this, because there were skaters that were really good at figures, but were less impressive in their free skate performances. So some skaters would score really well despite having a weaker free skate, and this confused television audiences because the figures portion of the competition wasn't televised. So since 1990, figures have not been used as a scoring element for international competitions. Instead, at least here in the US, US figure skating created 8 moves in the field tests, 1 for each skating level. These tests are designed to ensure that a skater has acquired the skills at a specific level before moving up to the next level. Moves, unlike figures, are not just about the pattern on the ice. Moves are about posture, carriage, flow, power, and quickness. And these elements are all considered necessary when executing a move. Each move emphasizes different aspects of these elements. And when testing, each move will have a primary and often a secondary focus that the judges are looking for. So, for example, today we're talking about the pre-preliminary moves in the field. And there's a move called forward perimeter stroking. Its primary emphasis is on power, with the secondary emphasis on extension. It's essential to understand what these terms mean to successfully practice and test each move. So for the earlier tests, like the one we're talking about today, pre-preliminary, no great deal of technical ability or carriage of flow is expected. The skater is expected to know the move and be able to perform it without any major mistakes. But as a skater progresses to higher level tests, the judges expect to see better edges, form, power, and flow. At the highest levels, novice, junior, and senior, the skater is expected to provide excellent performance with strong edge control and depth, great power, extension, and flow. What this all means is that as a skater moves up, not only are the skills for each level more difficult, but the overall quality and performance are judged more critically. Now, it's important to note that the moves in the field test require the skater to skate the correct steps on the prescribed edges. For example, when an inside edge is called for, you're required to skate on an inside edge to pass. The skater should skate to the pattern as closely as possible. And there are diagrams in the rule book. And while these diagrams are not a set dance pattern, the skater development objectives cannot be achieved if the moves are done in an incorrect pattern. So in other words, you can't really deviate from the pattern and you can't change the steps. And I know this is something that younger skaters struggle with. I'll show them a pattern and they'll go, but I want to do it this way. And I have to explain to them that this is not something that I made up. This is something that comes down from US figure skating, and we're all required to learn it. And even if we don't like it, we have to do it the way that they want us to. The skater should show a steady and marked progression of skill, mastery, and performance at each level as they progress up the test structure. It's not merely enough to know the steps and get around the rink without falling. The skater needs to demonstrate an increasing ability to execute all prescribed bilateral movements with equal strength as they progress up the test structure. In other words, you have to know how to do all these things on both sides of your body, regardless if you're right-handed or left-handed or clockwise or counterclockwise. You still have to do them on both sides, and often forward and backward too. Now, we all have a dominant side, and that's okay, but we have to work a little bit harder with our non-dominant side. Moves in the field will continue the 4 basic points: edge quality, extension, quickness, and power. One of the questions I get frequently from skaters as well as parents is, what happens if I fail the test? Well, here's the thing. There's no failing. No one fails. The worst thing that can possibly happen is that you'll get what's called a retry. So don't panic. You're allowed to retake any test as many times as you need to pass. Now, there's certain restrictions into how often you can do this, but you can retake the test if you don't pass the first time. And often it's useful if you take the test and get a retry because the judges give you comments. They write it right down on the form. They explain what it was that wasn't performed properly. So it can actually be super helpful if you are asked to take the test again. And when you get the results back, whether you pass or not, it's always a good idea to go over the test sheet with your coach. They can help you to better understand some of the comments and what the judge has written. Now that I've explained what moves in the field is and why you should test them, let's get into the actual first test, the pre-preliminary moves in the field. This test consists of 4 patterns: forward perimeter stroking, clockwise and counterclockwise, basic consecutive edges, forward right and left foot spirals, and the Waltz 8. Now I'm going to show you my skater's recent test. This was a passing test, and I'm going to provide you some commentary that explains what she's done correctly, and even though she passed the test, maybe what she could have done better. Now, I did ask permission to share this with you, and this is all okay with everyone. Following my commentary, I'm going to let you see the entire test in its entirety without me talking on it so that you can see it in real time, exactly how it was submitted for the virtual test. Okay, so the first move is the pre-preliminary pattern 1, forward perimeter stroking, clockwise and counterclockwise. Now, the skater needs to perform 4 to 8 strokes, depending upon the length of the ice and the strength of the skater, with crossovers around the ends, using the full ice surface and for 1 full lap of the rink in both directions. So it's 2 laps total. Introductory steps are optional. The primary focus for this move is power, with a secondary focus on extension. Power is the creation and maintenance of speed and flow without visible effort. This means skaters make it look easy. Power is developed by the continuous rise and fall of the skating knee together with the pressure of the edge of the blade against the ice. And the skater should demonstrate the ability to exert equal pressure against the ice surface with both the right and the left foot. So here's an instance of dominant foot versus non-dominant foot. They both have to be equal, and there's really no excuse for saying, well, that's my bad foot. You just have to work harder with the quote, bad foot. By the way, there's no bad foot. There's just a dominant and non-dominant foot. And the end results of power are velocity, speed or pace, flow across the ice, and acceleration. Flow plus strength equals power. So what judges are looking for here is a skater's ability to maintain a consistent and undisturbed running edge across the ice. Now, the secondary focus, extension, this means the general carriage should be erect, characterized by an extended body line. In other words, good posture. The head's angle should flow naturally from the line of the back. The arms should be naturally extended with the shoulders down and back, and the skater's hand should follow the line of the movement being executed. The final extended position should be executed in a controlled manner and should achieve maximum length of all body lines. So the test standards and expectations for perimeter stroking, shallow edges with some flats are okay. Minimum of 3 crossovers on each end, some evidence of good posture, and skater balanced over the skating foot. Common errors are toe pushing as opposed to using the inside edge to push from. Remember, we don't want to use a toe pick to push with. Weak posture or poor extension, inability to properly use the blade. This again comes back to toe pushing. Weak clockwise direction during crossovers. And with crossovers, we definitely don't want to see step overs. We want to see nice crossovers. Some other errors are skaters that rush down the length of the ice rather than achieving a glide with the extended free leg. Keeping your skating knee too stiff, not bending and rising. Looking down at the ice instead of in front of you. Arms held too high. Starting and ending the crossovers in the wrong place. Or not being on an edge for your crossovers. Now, let's take a look at Peyton. So we're going to look at the first move. She's starting her intro steps here. 3 strokes, 1 crossover in. Notice how she's pushing from the inside edge of her blade. She's bending and rising in her knee. She has really good speed here. Really nice extension. She's turning her foot out as she extends. And with her crossover, she's leading with her toe and she is not stepping over. There's probably an extra crossover there that she didn't need. Look at how fast she's going, though. I'm actually really proud of her. I think she's really proud of herself, too. And she's doing a nice T-stop to end. Now she's going to go back and do the other direction, and hopefully this little skater will stay out of her way. These are her intro steps for the clockwise direction. Now she's starting her stroking. Deep knee bend, coming back in and rising. Knee bend and rising. She's using the side of her blade. There's no toe pushing here. She's on an edge for her crossovers. Notice she's extending. Two strokes there, 3 strokes, and 4 strokes. She's doing 4 strokes. So she's doing about 4 strokes each side and 3 crossovers on the end. one extra stroke, and a stop. Nice, beautiful T-stop. Good work, Peyton. And you notice she did have good bilateral symmetry, the number of strokes and crossovers. If you're practicing your preliminary moves and you're having trouble getting between 4 to 6 strokes or 4 to 8 strokes going down the rink, a good idea, and what I'll tell my skaters to do, is to either use the hockey dots or the lines as a guide. So for each one of those, that's a push. Okay, so let's move on to pre-preliminary move number 2, basic consecutive edges. These include the forward outside edge, the forward inside edge, the backward outside edge, and the backward inside edge. Starting from a standing position, the skater will perform 4 to 6 semicircles or half circles, alternating feet using an axis line, and we use a hockey line. The skater may start each set on either foot, but they must be skated in the order listed. So you can't do inside edges first. You have to do forward, outside, inside, backward, outside, backward, inside. You can't change the order of them. And here the primary focus is on edge quality. And edge quality is initiated through proper body alignment over the skating foot, creating a stable arc that travels uninterrupted until a required transition occurs. Depth of edge refers to the acuteness of the arc and is created by the lean of the body and the angle of the blade when it takes the ice. Good edge quality results in a confident, sure, and controlled movement. In other words, substantial steadiness with a minimum of subcurves, no wobbling around. The standards and expectations for this test are that you must complete 4 to 6 half circles with equal lobes. So they should all be about the same size. The starting edge is close, perpendicular to axis. Some evidence of good posture and body position must be demonstrated. Some common errors that we see, just like with the stroking, often we see a skater toe pushing instead of pushing with the inside edge of the side of their blade, not beginning at the right part of the axis, lacking control in the second half, particularly with the back outside edge, lacking control of back inside edges, which are the most difficult, the inability to check upper body rotation, and that's checking with your shoulders and your arms, rotating the body too soon and too quickly, or over-rotating at the beginning of the edge, causing the shoulders and hips to over-rotate, which can make it difficult to hold onto the edge, and the skater can feel twisted or stuck when they try to complete the edge. We also sometimes see lobes that are too large or U-shaped, which means that as a skater comes back to the line, they actually have to skate in a straight line, and that's not actually an edge. Not being able to maintain alignment over the skating hip. And sometimes we see trailing the pushing foot on the ice instead of picking it up once the weight has been transferred to the other foot. We also sometimes see not enough flow, or lobes that are too small, or very shallow edges. Okay, so let's take a look at Peyton. There's no introduction steps to this move, so we're going to take a look, and she's going to start right here with her forward outside edges. As she's pushing from the inside edge, she's bringing her foot toe to heel and then extending it in front of her. She's got good knee bend at the start. Oop. The other skater kind of got in her way. Okay. Now there's some confusion going on in the background over there. I feel bad for her. I didn't realize when I was filming it. So notice pushing from the inside edge, toe to heel, extending in front. And she's keeping her body position. Now we have some skaters entering the ice. Yeah, even though it's a virtual test, you can still get nervous, and things like that can definitely throw you off. But I think she handled it pretty well. She's bending at the knee, nice knee bend, nice rise and extension. We do see some two-footed transitions, which were noted by the judge, and I'll go over her results with you. There's this little skater again. She just keeps getting in the way. She held on to the 2 feet a little long there. A little stuck there. That was one of those instances of getting stuck. She's wobbling a little bit though. I think she's nervous. She's probably going to hate that I'm saying that, but I think she's nervous. So obviously this skater made some errors. But here's the thing about the pre-preliminary moves in the field. It's designed to encourage beginner skaters to learn the fundamentals. No significant degree of technical ability, carriage, or flow is expected. The skater must show knowledge of the steps, reasonably good edges, and some evidence of good form, which this skater does, and the judge agreed. And as this pattern, basic consecutive edges, is focused on edge quality, the judge noted that she had good organization with her free leg, but not always control to be precise, and made some 2-foot transitions, which I think was due to the excessive noise in the rink at the time, because I've honestly never noticed her doing that before. And watching this video, it's difficult as a coach to also be the videographer, because I'm looking through a little tiny screen on my GoPro, and I couldn't see a lot of these errors. I probably would have insisted that we do the test again and re-record the test in its entirety. Instead, we just did this in one take. And had this been a higher level test, I might have done a few takes of it just to make sure we got one good one. But what I found sometimes is that the more you try to do something correctly, the more you're going to mess some things up. So we agreed that the first one was probably the best we were going to get that day, with the banging on the roof and the hockey players coming in and out and the little skater getting in the way too. So, okay. So let's move on to pre-preliminary moves number 3, forward, right, and left foot spirals. Now for this, the skater will perform right foot and left foot spirals down the rink's length, maintaining a spiral position on each foot for approximately 4 seconds with an extended leg held at the hip level or higher. The skater may be on flats and may start on either foot. Introductory steps are optional. The move's focus is on extension, with an obvious effort to extend body lines and demonstrate control of positions. The test standards and expectations are that you hold that glide for 4 seconds. The leg is at least at hip level with back arched and good form. Return to 2 feet and then the next position. Spirals can be on very shallow edges or flats with steadiness, no pronounced lapses in balance. Common errors that we see are the inability to balance in the spiral position. The free leg must be above the hip. Often we'll see it held too low or off to the side, or I'm sure everybody's seen a skater with a saggy foot where their leg's up with their foot sagging down. Curving edges instead of a straight line. So we don't want to be on an edge while we're doing this particular pattern. And there's a maximum of 7 intro steps, so you can't get any more of a running start. Okay, so let's look at patents. Here's her intro steps. 2 strokes, 1 cross, and she's right into that spiral. Nice arch, nice extension, definitely hip level or higher, and she's holding it for way more than 4 seconds. I think that's almost double the 4 seconds. That was pretty good. The judge agreed with that. She gave her a check for the hip level or higher for 4 seconds. She gave her a check for back arched and good form. She gave her a check for steadiness and noted strong positions. She gave a plus for right and a plus for left. And I would agree, she's equal on both sides. And Peyton usually nails that pattern every time she does it. Peyton's spirals are very strong. Okay, So now we have the last move, pre-preliminary move number 4, the Waltz 8. The skater will perform the Waltz 8 using large circumference circles, completing 2 patterns on each foot and performed with control. The focus here is on edge quality with a minimum of subcurves. So we don't want to see wobbling around. The test standards and expectations are some control of positions and edges, awareness of rhythmic motion. This is waltz timing 3-4, control after the 3 turns, circles larger than in figures. You do not need to return to center, but you do want an axis. The circle cut into thirds, approximate. In common errors that we see, a skater can't hold the edge after the 3 turn, and this is usually caused by the skater putting too much energy into the turn as a means to whip themselves around rather than have the control of the edge. And a lot of younger skaters will do this. They'll whip themselves or fling themselves into the turn instead of using a controlled edge. And we don't want to whip or fling into turns because this will cause us to have to put our free foot down too early to steady ourselves. We also sometimes see no rhythm or timing. A waltz has a count of 3 beats per measure. So you want to try to skate 3 beats in each position. Sometimes we'll see the back edge is too short or the circle's not cut into thirds. And sometimes we have difficulty checking the 3 turns, stepping forward after the back outside edge, and that's actually a back Mohawk. So it's back Mohawk to forward skating. Sometimes we'll see some issues controlling the forward outside edge back to center, or controlling the upper body rotation and position. And many of these issues can be easily solved by not rotating your body as soon as you start an edge. On all 3 edges, there is time to set your body position. And then rotate. Okay, so let's take a look at Peyton's. So she decided to do this in the center, and she's giving me a nudge. I thought she was going to do it over there, but she's giving me the nudge that she's using center ice. So I very quickly had to get out of her way. So she has good control there. There's her edge. Little wobbly on the edge, but she completed the back Mohawk. She put her foot down a little early there. Turn, control. She's extending her leg, which I think looks nice. I feel like that little skater just keeps trying to get in her way. Up, okay, and now she's going to do it again in the to do 2 patterns on each foot. She broke a little at the waist, leaning forward a little bit there. I've definitely seen her do this better, and I can see, watching this now, I can see her leg trembling a little bit. Now I know why she didn't want to do it again. She was tired. This probably drained her. Okay. So let's see what the judge says. The judge said, again, some difficulty with transition, work on the weight shift. She got the pattern. She got the timing. She was a little wobbly. I think the judge probably saw the things that I just saw. And I wish I had somebody to be the videographer so I could have actually watched the test in person instead of having to be the coach and the videographer, because I didn't see a lot of these things at the time that we recorded it. You know what, though? It's fine. She passed, and I got to talk to you about what she did well and what she could have done better. And hi, Editing Amy here. I just wanted to take a minute and read something from the judge's handbook, and that's that a test result is based on the composite of quality, difficulty, error, if any, impact, and prevalence and severity of the error. A test result is not based solely on the presence or absence of error. Rather, it's the composite of the skater's development and understanding of the concepts, difficulty relative to the test level requirements, quality and execution and performance relative to test level expectation, and readiness to move on to the next level. So I just ask that you would be kind with your comments. Thank you. And now we're working on the preliminary moves, and hopefully I'll have that for you to show you soon. So that's my 2 cents on Peyton's test. Next, I'm going to show you her test in its entirety without me talking over it. what you're going to see next is exactly what I provided to the virtual test session. Note that I stood center ice, but I probably should have stood a little closer to the dashers between the two team boxes. To note the date and time, I used the metadata card from my camera, but it's probably preferred that you hold up a phone and show the date and time on the phone. So it might have been better for me just to have Peyton hold up her phone and show the date and time. Also note that what you're going to see next is a continuous shot. I do not stop the camera between moves. There is no editing. There is no music playing. What you're seeing is exactly as the test was performed in real time, with all the strange banging on the roof from the solar panels. I hope you find this video useful. Please remember to give it a like, subscribe, tap that bell so that you never miss a video, and share it with anyone else you think could benefit from this. And just share it on your social media too. Okay, so now here's Peyton's unedited test.
Hi, my name is Peyton Crimmy, and I am testing the pre-preliminary moves.
This is Amy. I will see you real soon. Bye.